There was a people once who were the strongest human beings ever to walk the earth. Not strong the way a champion is strong, strong like a mountain is strong. They stood taller than the doorways of our houses today. Their arms could tear a full-grown tree out of the ground, just as you might pull a weed. They carved their homes into the sides of red cliffs and built pillars so massive that people who came centuries later could not imagine how any hand had lifted them. And these people, with all that power in their bodies, looked up at the sky one day and decided they no longer needed the one who had given them the sky. That decision destroyed them, every single one of them, in a single week. And the wind that killed them left their bodies scattered across the sand like the hollow trunks of fallen palm trees. Before we go deeper into this story, I want to hear from you. From which country are you watching this video right now? Type it in the comments. And if stories like this one, real stories from the Quran that carry a warning we all need, move your heart, then subscribe and stay with me until the very end, because the ending of this one is something you will not forget. The people I am telling you about were called Ad. They lived in a place the Quran names Al-Ahqaf, the land of the sand dunes, in the south of the Arabian Peninsula, in a region we now connect to the empty desert near Yemen, and the borders of what people once called Arabia Felix, the fortunate Arabia. And it truly was fortunate. This was not always the harsh, waterless waste that we picture when we think of that part of the world. In the time of Ad, the land was green. Rain came in its season. Rivers ran, gardens spread across the valleys, heavy with fruit. Their herds were fat and countless. Springs bubbled up from the ground. Allah had given this people everything a human being could ask for, and He had given it to them in such abundance that few nations before or after them ever tasted, and their bodies matched their land. Allah had made the people of Ad enormous in stature and immense in strength. They were not giants of fairy tales. They were a real people, and the Quran itself tells us plainly that Allah had increased them greatly in their creation. They built with stone the way we build with clay. They raised columns and towers into the air, structures so grand that the Quran singles them out and asks whether anything like them had ever been created in all the lands. Iram of the Pillars, the Quran calls one of their achievements, a place of such height and such craft that its name became a byword for a civilization at the very peak of what human hands could do. Now think carefully about what a people like that would begin to believe about themselves. When you are the tallest, the strongest, and the richest, when your buildings scrape the clouds and your armies frighten every neighbor, when no drought touches your fields and no enemy can break your walls, a quiet poison begins to move through your heart. You begin to think that you did this. You begin to think that your hands, your muscles, your cleverness, your ancestors, all of it came from you and belongs to you and was earned by you. And the more you have, the louder that voice becomes. The people of Ad listened to that voice for generations until they could no longer hear any other. They had forgotten the God of their forefather, Nuh, alayhi salam, whose story they surely still remembered, because Ad came not long after the great flood. Their grandfathers were among the survivors that Allah had saved in the ark. And yet, within a few generations, the children of the saved had become worshippers of stone. They carved idols with their own hands, gave them names, Sada, Samud, and Hara, and bowed to them. They asked these lifeless shapes for rain. They asked them for victory. They asked them for children, and for wealth, and for long life. And when the rain came, as it did in that blessed land, they thanked the idols. When the harvest was heavy, they credited the idols. They laid every good thing that flowed to them from the one who truly gave it at the feet of stones that could not hear, see, or lift a single grain of sand to help them. This is the strange thing about a heart that has turned away from its Creator. It does not become empty. It fills up with substitutes. It will worship anything at all, before it worships the God it is running from. Into this proud and forgetful nation, Allah sent a man. He was one of them, from their own tribe and a respected family, known to them by face and name. His name was Hud, alayhi salam. And he was not a stranger who arrived from a far country with strange customs. He was their brother, in the sense that he came from their people, spoke their own tongue, and had lived among them his whole life. They knew his honesty. They knew that in all his years, he had never told a lie, never cheated a man in the market, and never broken a promise. This is how Allah so often sends his messengers. He does not send someone easy to dismiss. He sends someone the people already trust, so that they cannot pretend they never had a fair chance. Hud, alayhi salam, stood before his people, and he spoke to them with a message so simple that a child could understand it, and so heavy that it would decide the fate of an entire nation. He said to them the words the Quran preserves for us, Ya qawmi budu Allaha malakum min ilahin ghayruhu. My people worship Allah. You have no God other than Him. That was the heart of everything, not a complicated philosophy, not a long list of rituals, just this. The one who made you, the one who gave you these bodies and this land and this rain and this wealth, that one alone deserves your worship. These stones you have carved gave you nothing. Turn back to the one who gave you everything. And he added something to soften their hearts, something to open the door. Afala tattakun. Will you not then fear him and guard yourselves against wrongdoing? He was not there to insult them. He was not there to strip them of their dignity. He was there to save them. He wanted them to see that the life they were so proud of was a gift, that gifts come from a giver, and that the giver was calling them back before it was too late. He reminded them of where they came from. He told them to remember how Allah made them successors after the people of Nuh and increased their stature and strength. Remember the favors of Allah, he told them, so that you may succeed. Remember, that was his plea. Just remember who gave you all of this. You would think a message like that, delivered by a man of such known honesty, would move them. It did not. The leaders of Ad, the chiefs, the powerful ones who had the most to lose if the people started thinking about God instead of about them, they were the first to reject him. And notice, it is almost always the powerful who reject the truth first, because the truth threatens their power. A message that says all human beings stand equal before their Maker is a dangerous message to a man who has spent his life standing above everyone else. So the chiefs answered Hud, alayhi salam, and their answer drips with the arrogance that had rotted their nation from the inside. The Quran records what they said. Inna lanaraka fi safahatin, wa inna lanazunnuka min al-kadhibin. We see you as a fool, and we truly think you are one of the liars. Think about the cruelty in that. This man had never lied to them once in his entire life. They knew it. And now, the moment he told them the one truth that mattered most, they called him a liar, and they called him a fool, this man who was the only one among them still thinking clearly. This is what happens when a heart has decided in advance that it does not want the truth. It does not weigh the evidence. It attacks the messenger. Hud, alayhi salam, answered them with a calm that could only come from a man standing on solid ground. He did not shout back. He did not curse them. He said, "My people, there is no foolishness in me. I am a messenger from the Lord of all the worlds. I deliver to you the messages of my Lord, and I am to you a trustworthy advisor." Feel the weight of that word, advisor. He was telling them, I am not your enemy. I gain nothing from this. I am not asking you for money. I am not asking you for power. I am asking you for nothing at all, except that you save yourselves. An enemy wants to take from you. An advisor wants to give to you. I am your advisor, and I am advising you with everything I have, because I do not want to watch you walk off a cliff. And then he asked them a question that should have stopped them cold. He said, "Are you amazed that a reminder has come to you from your Lord, through a man from among yourselves, sent to warn you? Why is this so strange to you? Did you expect Allah to send an angel you could not touch or understand? He sent you one of your own, someone who eats what you eat and walks where you walk. someone who can speak to you plainly so that you would have no excuse. This mercy, this closeness, this fairness in how Allah dealt with them, and still they turned away. The debate between Hud, alayhi salam, and his people stretched on. He kept calling, they kept refusing, and as their refusal hardened, their words grew bolder and more insulting. They said to him in effect, "Have you come to us so that we would worship Allah alone and abandon what our fathers worshipped? Then bring us what you threaten us with, if you are truthful." Do you hear the challenge in that? They were not just refusing, they were daring him. Bring on your punishment. Bring on this doom you keep warning us about. We do not believe it is coming, and we are not afraid. There is a phrase they clung to, a phrase that has echoed through every arrogant generation since, what our fathers worshipped. This is one of the great traps of the human heart. People do not reject the truth because they have examined it and found it false. They reject it because accepting it would mean admitting their fathers were wrong, their traditions were mistaken, their whole inherited way of life was built on sand. And that admission is so painful, so humbling, that many people would rather be destroyed than make it. The people of Ad would rather die worshipping stones their grandfathers carved than live worshipping the God who made their grandfathers. And they got exactly what they preferred. Hud, alayhi salam, did not give up. This is one of the most beautiful things about the messengers of Allah. They did not measure their effort by whether people were responding. They kept calling, even when every single day brought nothing but mockery. He warned them again. He described to them the greatness of the one they were rejecting. He said to them, "I have put my trust in Allah, my Lord and your Lord. There is no creature that moves upon the earth, except that he holds it by its forelock. My Lord is upon a straight path," meaning there is not one living thing, not a bird, not an ant, not a lion, not a single one of you, standing here in your pride, that is not completely and utterly in the grip of Allah. Every breath you take, He allows. Every heartbeat He permits. You think you are strong. You are held by your forelock like a captured animal, and the one holding you is the one you are mocking. And then He told them the truth that they most needed to hear and least wanted to hear. He said, "If you turn away, then know that I have delivered to you what I was sent with. My duty is done, and my Lord will replace you with another people, and you will not harm him at all. My Lord is a guardian over all things." This is a devastating thing to say to a proud nation. You think you are indispensable. You think the world needs Ad, that the earth would be poorer without your towers and your strength. But Allah does not need you. If you refuse Him, He will wipe you away and raise up a people who will thank Him, and your absence will not cost Him a single thing. The universe will not pause to mourn you. You are replaceable. Everyone who refuses Allah is replaceable. But they would not hear it. And now something happened that shows us just how far gone they were. Allah, in His mercy, sent them a warning through nature itself before the final blow. The rain stopped. In that green and fortunate land, in the country of gardens and springs and heavy harvests, the sky closed up. Month after month, no rain fell. The rivers thinned. The wells dropped. The gardens that had made them the envy of every nation began to wither. The fat herds grew lean. The proud people of Ad, who had never known thirst, now looked up at a hard, empty sky and waited for water that did not come. 3 years, some of the accounts tell us. 3 years of drought, pressing down on a people who had thought themselves untouchable. Now here was mercy dressed as hardship. Allah was squeezing them, gently at first, to wake them up. A drought is a warning you can survive. A drought gives you time to think, time to turn back, time to fall to your knees and say, "We were wrong, forgive us." Allah was giving them that time. He was saying, without words, "Look at what happens when I withhold just a little. Look how quickly your gardens die when I hold back the rain you credited to your idols. Ask your idols for water now. Go on. Beg the stones. See if they answer." And what did they do? They went to their idols. Of course they did. That is what a hardened heart does. It does not learn. It repeats. They gathered before Sadah and Samud and Hara, and they begged for rain, and the stones sat there in their silence, giving nothing, because they had nothing to give and never did. Then, in their desperation, the people of Ad decided to send a delegation. There was a sacred place near where the holy sanctuary would later stand, a place people went to pray for relief in times of great need. The people of Ad chose a group of their best men and sent them on the long journey to pray for rain to be lifted from their land. And here Hud, alayhi salam, must have felt a flicker of hope. They were at least admitting they needed help from above. If only they would turn that need toward the right direction. If only, in their thirst, they would finally say the words, "Allah, we were wrong." But even in their suffering, even with their gardens dead and their children crying for water, they would not humble themselves before the one who could actually help them. They would travel across the desert to beg for rain, but they would not bend their necks to the God who owned the rain. That is how deep pride can go. A man will crawl across the sand looking for water and still refuse to look up at the one who owns the sky. When the delegation reached the sacred place, something happened in the heavens that was shown to them as a kind of terrible mercy, a final chance to read the signs. 3 clouds appeared in the sky, a white one, a red one, and a black one. And a voice, in the accounts that have come down to us, gave them a choice. Choose. And one among the delegation, a man whose heart still carried some of the old defiance, looked at the 3 clouds and chose the black one. He thought, black clouds are heavy clouds. Black clouds are full of rain. He chose the black cloud because he thought it would bring them the most water. He chose it thinking it was salvation. He did not know he was choosing the death of his entire nation, because that black cloud was not carrying rain. It was carrying the punishment of Allah, and the man had chosen it with his own tongue, in front of witnesses, the way his whole people had chosen destruction with their own tongues every day for years, by refusing every warning they were given. They asked for it, and now it was coming. The black cloud began to move. It drifted from the sacred place, back toward the land of Ad, back toward the dead gardens and the thirsting people. And when the people of Ad saw it approaching their valleys, they did not fall silent with dread. They celebrated. They ran out of their homes. They pointed up at the dark cloud rolling in across the horizon, and they shouted with joy, "Hada aridun mumtiruna." This is a cloud bringing us rain. Finally, they thought, finally the drought breaks. Finally our idols have answered, or the sky has softened, or our luck has turned. They saw their death coming toward them, and they thanked it for coming. And this is the most chilling detail in the whole story. They rejoiced at the very thing that was about to annihilate them. They looked up at the instrument of their total destruction, and they smiled, because they could not read the signs, because a heart that has spent years rejecting the truth loses the ability to recognize the truth, even when it is filling the whole sky above their heads. They thought mercy was coming when doom was coming. And how often does that happen to people who have turned from Allah, that the thing they celebrate is the very thing that will ruin them, and they cannot tell the difference anymore. Hud, alayhi salam, knew. He looked at that cloud and his heart must have broken, because he knew what his people did not. The Quran tells us exactly what it was. Bal huwa ma istajaltum bihi. No, this is what you were asking to be hastened. Rihun fiha adhabun alimun. A wind, within it a painful punishment. That was the black cloud, not rain. Wind, and not any wind. A wind carrying inside it a torment beyond anything those proud, mighty people had ever imagined could touch them. The wind arrived. And at first, perhaps, it seemed like nothing. A breeze, a cool current after so much heat. But the wind did not stop. It grew. It rose. It began to howl, and then to scream, and then to roar with a violence that no one alive had ever heard. This was a wind that Allah unleashed with a fury under his command. The Quran calls it Rihan Sarsaran, Atiya, a furious, roaring wind, raging beyond control. And Allah tells us in His book exactly how long it lasted. He sent it upon them for 7 nights and 8 days in succession, without a single pause, without a moment of stillness, without one breath of calm in which a person might hide or recover or run. 7 nights and 8 days. Think about that. A storm you cannot escape, that does not weaken, that does not sleep, that does not for one instant let up so that you can catch your breath. The people of Ad, the strongest human beings who had ever lived, were about to learn what their strength was worth against the smallest of Allah's soldiers. Because wind is nothing. Wind is air. Wind has no muscle, no blade, no fist. And with this weightless, invisible thing, Allah broke the backs of the mightiest nation on earth. The wind tore into their land. It ripped the roofs from their homes. It threw down those famous pillars, the towers of Iram that no other nation could match, scattering the massive stones as though they were pebbles. The people ran for shelter. They crowded into their houses, into caves, into every hollow they could find, and the wind followed them in. It found them wherever they hid. The Quran gives us an image so precise and so terrible that once you see it, you never forget it. Allah says, "The wind snatched the people up, tanziu al-nas, and threw them down, ka'annahum ajazu nakhlin munkairin, as if they were the trunks of hollow, uprooted palm trees." Understand what that picture is telling you. A palm tree is tall. A palm tree is strong, rooted deep in the earth. To uproot a palm tree takes tremendous force, and these people were like palm trees, tall and mighty, and rooted in their pride. But the wind pulled them out of the ground the way you might pluck a flower, and it did not just uproot them. The image says hollow, munkairin, which means their insides were torn out, so that what fell to the ground were empty husks. The wind hit them with such force that it stripped them from within and left their bodies as empty shells, tumbling and rolling across the sand like the dead trunks of trees a storm had felled. Their heads, in some of the accounts, were torn from their bodies. Their great, tall forms, the forms they had been so proud of, were smashed against the earth and against the rocks and against the ruins of their own magnificent buildings. The stronger a man was, the harder he fell. All that strength, all those years of building bodies that could tear trees from the ground, and in the end their own great size only made them heavier targets for a wind that treated them like straw. There was no fighting it. You cannot punch the wind. You cannot wrestle the air. There was no enemy to face, no wall to hide behind, nothing to push against. Only the roaring, endless, invisible hand of Allah pressing down on them from every side at once. And it did not stop. Day after day, night after night, the wind screamed across the land of Ad, and one by one, then in heaps, the people fell. The children fell. The chiefs who had called Hud a liar fell. The strong young men who had dared him to bring the punishment fell. The man who had chosen the black cloud, if he was among them, fell. Everyone who had heard the warning and laughed. Everyone who had looked up at the killing cloud and cheered. All of them, torn from the ground and thrown down and left hollow on the sand. The wind was so cold and so violent that it did more than kill. It buried. The sand itself moved under that raging wind, drifting and piling, so that when the 8th day finally ended and the wind at last fell silent, the land of Ad had been transformed. The green gardens, the springs, the rivers, the towering city of pillars, all of it lay broken and half swallowed by the desert. And the bodies of that mighty people lay scattered everywhere among the ruins, silent, empty, finished. The Quran describes the aftermath with a single unforgettable line, "Fatarahum Sarah." So you would see them lying overthrown, ka'annahum ajazu nakhlin khawiyya, as if they were the hollow trunks of fallen palm trees. Nothing left standing, nothing left breathing. A whole nation, the strongest the world had ever produced, laid flat across the ground like felled trees after a storm. And then Allah asks us, across all these centuries, in the same verses, a question meant to reach into our own hearts. فَهَلْ تَرَى لَهُم مِّن بَقِيَّةٍ. So do you see any remnant of them? Do you see even one of them left? Is there anyone who can point to a survivor of Ad and say, "Here, this one made it. This one's strength saved him"? No, there is no remnant. There is no survivor of the punishment. The mightiest nation of its age was erased so completely that for centuries afterward, people were not even certain where their cities had stood, and their name survived only as a warning in the words of God. But Allah did not destroy everyone. This is the mercy at the center of every one of these stories, and we must never miss it. When the punishment came down, Allah saved Hud, alayhi salam, and the small number of people who had believed alongside him. The Quran tells us plainly, وَلَمَّا جَاءَ أَمْرُنَا نَجَّيْنَا هُودًا وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مَعَهُ بِرَحْمَةٍ مِنَّا. And when our command came, we saved Hud and those who believed with him by a mercy from us. وَنَجَّيْنَهُم مِّنْ عَذَابٍ غَالِظٍ. And we saved them from a harsh punishment. Think about what that means. That same wind, that same roaring, endless, killing storm that tore a whole nation out of the ground and left them hollow on the sand. That same wind passed over the believers and did not harm them, not because they were stronger. They were the weak ones, the mocked ones, the small band that the chiefs had laughed at. Their bodies were no different from the bodies of the men who died. But they had one thing the others did not. They had faith. They had turned their hearts to the one who commands the wind. And so the wind, which obeys only Allah, was commanded to spare them, and it spared them, while it destroyed the giants who trusted in their own arms. This is the lesson written in the bones of Ad. Strength does not save you. Wealth does not save you. Towers and pillars and armies and the envy of every nation, none of it saves you. On the day the command of Allah comes down, the only thing that stands between a person and destruction is faith and the mercy that faith brings. The strongest people who ever lived were killed by wind. The weak believers among them walked away untouched. That is the whole equation, laid bare for anyone willing to see it. Now I want you to sit with something, because it would be a mistake to hear this story and think it is only about a strange, ancient people who lived in green Arabia thousands of years ago. This story is a mirror. Allah did not preserve it in His book so that we could shake our heads at the foolishness of a dead nation. He preserved it so that we would look into it and see ourselves. And when you look honestly, the resemblance is uncomfortable. The people of Ad were destroyed not because they were poor, but because they were rich and forgot who made them rich. They were destroyed not because they were weak, but because they were strong and imagined their strength was their own. Look at our own age. Look at what we have built. Towers that dwarf the pillars of Iram, machines that fly, power over the earth that the people of Ad could never have dreamed of. And in the middle of all that power, how many hearts have quietly decided that they no longer need God? How many people credit their success to their own cleverness, their own hard work, their own hands, and never once look up to thank the one who gave them the mind and the hands and the very breath they used to build it all? The disease that killed Ad is not extinct. It is thriving. It wears new clothes, but it is the same disease, forgetting the giver in the middle of the gift. And there was something specific about the wrongdoing of Ad that Hud, alayhi salam, pointed to. Something we should not skip past. He warned them about their arrogance and their oppression. He said to them, "Do you build on every high place a monument to amuse yourselves, and take for yourselves strongholds as if you will live forever? And when you strike like tyrants." He was telling them that their power had made them cruel. They built for show. They built to boast. They oppressed the weak beneath them because they could, because who would stop them? Because they had the strength, and the strength made them think they had the right. This is the other half of forgetting Allah. When you forget that you will stand before Him, you stop fearing the harm you do to others. You strike like a tyrant, because in your heart you have decided there is no one above you to answer to. So Hud, alayhi salam, gave them the cure, and the cure is the same cure Allah offers every human heart in every age. Fear Allah and obey me. Return to the one who made you. Remember that all of this, your body, your strength, your wealth, your time, every bit of it is a loan and not a possession. And the day is coming when the loan is called back. He begged them to remember. Remember his favors. Remember where you came from. Remember the people of Nuh and what happened when a nation forgot. He was not asking them to become poor. He was not asking them to tear down their buildings. He was asking them to keep God in their hearts while they built, to stay grateful, to stay humble, to stay just. That is all. And that small thing, that turning of the heart, was too much for their pride to bear. So they died as hollow trees, and the believers among them lived. There is a detail in the way Allah tells this story that I do not want you to miss, because it is one of the most merciful things in the whole Quran. When Allah describes sending the messengers to Ad and to the nations like them, He often reminds us that no nation was ever destroyed without first being warned. He does not strike people down out of nowhere. He sends them a messenger. He sends them signs. With Ad, He sent them the drought, 3 long years of it, a warning any thinking person could have read. He sent them Hud, alayhi salaam, one of their own, honest, patient, calling them back year after year after year. He gave them chance after chance after chance. The punishment did not come because Allah was quick to anger. It came only after every door of mercy had been held open for them, and they had slammed each one shut with their own hands. Allah is not unjust to His servants. It was Ad who were unjust to themselves. And notice how patient Hud, alayhi salam, was through all of it. Years of being called a liar and a fool. Years of watching people he loved, his own tribe, his own people, walk deeper and deeper into their destruction, while he could do nothing but warn them. Imagine the weight of that. Imagine standing among people you care about, seeing exactly what is coming for them, telling them plainly, and having them laugh in your face day after day. Most of us would have given up. Most of us would have grown bitter and walked away and left them to their fate. But the messengers of Allah did not carry bitterness. They carried grief. Hud, alayhi salam, was not angry that they rejected him. He was heartbroken that they were destroying themselves. That is the heart of a true caller to Allah. He does not want to be proven right. He wants his people to be saved. Let me bring you back to that black cloud for a moment, because there is a warning in it that reaches straight into your life and mine. The people of Ad looked at the instrument of their destruction, and they thought it was mercy. They celebrated the very thing that killed them. And I want you to ask yourself, honestly, how often do we do the same? How often does a person chase something with all their heart, celebrate finally getting it, thank their luck when it arrives, and it turns out to be the very thing that poisons their life, the wealth that made them forget God, the relationship that pulled them away from prayer, the success that fed their arrogance until it swallowed them. We are not always good at reading the clouds either. We see the dark shape on the horizon, and we run toward it cheering, because we cannot tell mercy from doom when our hearts are pointed in the wrong direction. The only protection against that blindness is the same protection that saved Hud and the believers. A heart turned toward Allah, that asks Him for guidance, that says, "Show me the truth of things, let me see what is really coming, and let me not celebrate my own ruin." There is something else here, something about the nature of the punishment itself, that carries a lesson so precise it could only come from the wisdom of Allah. Consider what these people were most proud of, their bodies, their towering, mighty, powerful bodies. And consider how Allah chose to destroy them. Not with a flood, as He destroyed the people of Nuh, though He could have. Not with a shout from the sky, as He destroyed other nations. He destroyed them with wind, with air, with the weakest, softest, most insubstantial thing in all creation. Why? Because Allah wanted the whole world to understand something. The thing you are proud of is nothing before me. Your strength, your size, your muscle. I will undo it with a breeze. I do not even need to send an army against you. I do not need fire or flood or falling mountains. I will send moving air, the same air you breathe without thinking, and I will pile your mighty bodies on the sand like dead branches. There is no strength except through Allah. The people of Ad learned that truth in the last week of their lives, when it was far too late to profit from it. And here is where I need you to turn the mirror on your own heart, gently but honestly. Every one of us has something we are quietly proud of, some strength we lean on, something we secretly believe is ours by right. For one person, it is their intelligence. For another, their beauty. For another, their money, or their family name, or their health, or their reputation, or the security they have built around their lives. And there is nothing wrong with having these things. The wrong comes when we start to believe they are ours, that we earn them, that they make us safe, that we do not need Allah because we have them. That is the exact moment the disease of Ad enters the heart, because every single one of those things is a loan, and every loan is fragile, and Allah can withdraw any of them with something as small as a breeze. The health you are proud of can leave with one bad test result. The money can vanish. The beauty fades. The name means nothing in the grave. The people of Ad thought their strength made them permanent. There is no remnant of them left. So what does Allah want from us in this story? He does not want us to be terrified into a corner. He wants us to be woken up. He wants us to look at our own gifts, whatever they are, and instead of saying, "Look what I have," to say, "Look what He has given me," and to thank Him, and to fear the day it is all returned, and to use it while we have it in ways that please Him rather than ways that feed our pride. The people of Ad used their strength to build monuments to themselves and to oppress the weak. Imagine if they had used that same strength to help the poor among them, to build shelter for travelers, to defend the oppressed, to remember Allah with grateful hearts. They would have been the greatest nation in the eyes of Allah, not just in the eyes of men. The gift was never the problem. What they did with it was the problem. And what they did with it flowed directly from whether or not Allah was in their hearts. I want you to hold on to the image of the believers who were saved. Because in a story so full of destruction, they are the light we are meant to walk toward. Picture them, a small group, mocked for years, powerless against the chiefs, watching their whole society sneer at their faith. They had no armies. They had no towers. By every measure, the people of Ad respected. The believers were nothing. And then the command of Allah came down, and in a single week, every measure the people of Ad respected was proven worthless. And the only thing that had any value at all was the faith the believers had been mocked for. The wind that erased the mighty passed over the humble and spared them by a mercy from their Lord. If you ever feel small in your faith, if you ever feel like the world laughs at you for holding on to Allah while everyone around you chases everything but Him, remember the believers of Ad. Remember who was standing when the wind finally stopped. And let me tell you something about the location of that final scene, because it deepens the whole lesson. Long after Ad were destroyed, their ruined dwellings still stood in that region of the sand dunes, half buried, silent. And the Arabs of later ages would pass by those ruins on their trading journeys. They saw the remains. They knew the stories. The Quran itself points to this, telling the people of Muhammad, peace be upon him, that they passed by the dwellings of Ad and could see with their own eyes what had happened to a people who rejected their messenger. Allah left the ruins as a lesson. He left them standing there in the desert as a silent sermon, so that every caravan that passed would look at those broken pillars and remember, this is what happens. This is where arrogance leads. This is the end of every nation that hears the truth and laughs. And now those same ruins speak to us, across all this distance, through the words of the Quran. We may never walk through the sand dunes of Al-Ahqaf. We may never see the fallen pillars of Iran with our own eyes, but we have something better. We have the story preserved perfectly in the words of Allah, so that we do not need to travel to the ruins to learn the lesson. The lesson has traveled to us. It is sitting in front of you right now. The only question is whether you will do what the people of Ad refused to do, whether you will hear the warning and let it change your heart before the cloud appears on your own horizon. Because here is the truth that this whole story is built around. The truth that Hud, alayhi salam, gave his entire life trying to make his people understand. Every one of us will face a day when the command of Allah comes down. For the nation of Ad it came as a wind in this life. For you and me, if it does not come in this life, it comes without fail at the moment of death. And then again on the day of standing, when every human being who ever lived will rise from the earth and stand before the one they either remembered or forgot. On that day, the strong and the weak will look exactly the same. The rich man and the poor man will stand side by side, with only their deeds in their hands. Every tower any human being ever built will be dust, and the only thing that will matter, the only currency that will have any value at all, is the same thing that saved the believers of Ad. A heart that turned to Allah while it still had the chance. So let this ancient wind blow through your own life for a moment. Let it strip away, just for the length of this reflection, everything you have been leaning on that is not Allah. Your strength, your plans, your wealth, your sense that you have plenty of time, that the reckoning is far away, that you will get serious about your faith later, after this, after that, once things settle down. The people of Ad thought they had time too. They dared Hud to bring the punishment because in their hearts they were certain it would never come, or that if it came, it would not come for them, not yet, not to a people as mighty as they were. And the whole thing, from the appearing of the black cloud to the silence after the 8th day, was over in about a week. That is how fast the certainty of a whole nation can be turned into scattered hollow trunks on the sand. I am not telling you this to frighten you into despair. I tell you this because Allah, in His mercy, gave us this story so we would not have to learn its lesson the hard way. The people of Ad had to be destroyed to teach the world that strength is nothing before Allah. You do not have to be destroyed to learn it. You can learn it right now, tonight, from the comfort of wherever you are sitting, simply by taking this story into your heart and letting it do what Hud, alayhi salam, spent years begging his people to allow. Let it turn you back. Let it make you grateful. Let it make you humble. Let it make you remember, before something forces you to remember, that everything you have came from Allah and returns to Allah, and that the wisest thing any human being can do is fall down in gratitude before the giver, while the gift is still in their hands. Remember the words Hud, alayhi salam, gave them. They are for you as much as for them. Ya qawmi budu, Allaha malakum min ilahin ghayruhu. My people worship Allah. You have no God other than Him. Strip away everything else you have made into a God in your life, every idol of wealth or status or self, and return to the only one who was ever worthy of your worship. And remember His gentle question that followed. Afala tattakun. Will you not then guard yourselves? Will you not protect yourselves, while you still can, from the day the command comes down? The people of Ad answered that question with mockery, and the wind answered them back. You get to answer it too. Right now, tonight, with your heart. The nation of Ad had everything, and lost it all, because they forgot the one who gave it. A handful of believers among them had nothing in the eyes of the world, and were saved by mercy from their Lord, because they remembered. The wind did not choose the strong. It did not choose the rich. It did not choose the tall or the proud or the clever. It spared the ones whose hearts belonged to Allah, and it swept away everyone else. Thousands of years have passed, and that same choice sits in front of every single one of us, every single day. Belong to Allah or belong to your pride. Remember Him or forget Him. Stand with the believers or fall with the mighty. The people of Ad chose. Their ruins are still telling us what their choice cost them. Now the choice is yours, and unlike them, you have heard the warning in time. May Allah make us among those who remember before we are made to remember. May He soften our hearts before life is forced to do so the hard way. May He keep the disease of Ad, the forgetting of the giver in the middle of the gift, far from our hearts. And may He count us, on the day the command comes down, among those who are saved by a mercy from him, and not among the hollow trees left scattered on the sand. The story of Hud, alayhi salam, and his people is finished, but the warning inside it is as alive as the wind. Do not let it pass over you like that black cloud passed over Ad, mistaken for mercy until it was too late. Read the sign now, turn now, while the sky above you is still clear.